My name is Tony Alcacer, and this video is part of the Sonoma State University Rising Data program. And you're going to be building one of these Estes Big Daddy rockets. And one of the issues is that the size of the payload here is a little bit too big for everything to go together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to modify this nose cone by cutting it and stuff, so that we can get all the stuff in here, the parachutes, the streamers, etc. And so part of the stuff that you received is a bag of parts like this. The first thing we're going to do is take out the 2 pieces of sandpaper, because you're going to need those to build the rocket. And so you need to go ahead and build the rocket pretty much just like it says in the plans, except for the part where they talk about attaching the shock cord and the parachute. Leave that part out. We're going to come back and go to that. So one of the first things that was kind of complicated in the instructions is actually the motor mount tube and stuff. And so what we're going to do, if we had a good pair of scissors, is we're going to open this up. We're going to open this up. Take this stuff out. And the yellow tube and the orange tube, we're going to set them aside. We're not going to use them. For right now, we're going to concentrate on the light brown tube and the green tube and the little metal part. Put this stuff all out of our way. We're going to take our ruler, metric, and according to the instructions, we're going to go to B5, 5B. And we're going to measure 4 lines on this motor tube here, and one of those lines is actually going to be a cut. So part of this is we're going to need an Exacto knife or a razor blade. So I'll put this out of the way. And so I have the measurements written down over here. We're going to go at 6 millimeter. 25, 89, and 98. So at that 89 millimeters, or 8.9 centimeters, we're going to make a cut with Exacto knife. We're going to come in here, put a little cut in there, just like that. This hook has a 90 on one end and a zigzaggy thing on the other end. So we're going to take the 90 degree and we're going to put it into the hole that we just cut. So it's like that. We're going to take a piece of tape and the second line, we're going to put that tape on there, and all this tape does is holds this in place for right now. See, it doesn't even go all the way around. So then we're going to take some glue. We're going to put it in the end that has the hook. We're going to roll it around in there. And then we're going to take our green ring, push it in here until it bottoms out on that metal part right there. And that motor tube is done. So the instructions are pretty complicated. Do away with the yellow part, do away with the red part. What these are is that the orange thing is a motor adapter so that you could use smaller motors, and the yellow thing is kind of a thing to push that green part in from the other end, but we don't need those. So at this point here, just go ahead and start building it. When you get to the part about attaching the shock cord, this is part of your shock cord, don't do that. Skip that part, and what you should end up with, not this in there, is a rocket that's almost done except for the shock cord. That part in there was a mistake. So at this point you should have the rocket all complete, just like this one here, that you should have this still and the parachute still. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some modifications. We're going to take the bag of parts and we're going to take out the black shot cord, and we're going to take out the little baggie that has the white round disc in it with the 2 screws. And what we're going to do next is we're going to cut the bottom of this nose cone off so we gain access to all the space in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some masking tape, and if we look at this nose cone that there's a wedge shape on here, we're going to take and run our tape from that into that wedge all the way around, and we're going to use that as a line to cut on with the hacksaw. So we're going to spin this around. Spin this around. We want it to join up exactly parallel. So now we just have a line that we can cut on. So we're going to take our hacksaw. In the first pass, we're just kind of marking it. That I can use my thumb to kind of hold it in place. And I'm just lightly cutting along that tape edge. I'm not going all the way through. I'm just kind of scoring it. And hopefully you're doing this in a place that they don't mind if you cut their table a little bit. So, work this around, work it around, work it around, work it around. A little bit more, almost there. So that's just scoring it. It's still attached, but it just scored. So now I can go ahead and start cutting through it, and the blade will want to follow that line. You can feel the strength kind of go out of it once you start cutting through it. A little bit more. And we're done. So we're going to take the tape off. We're going to use the sandpaper that we have left over. And we're going to take some of these burrs off of here. We want this nice and clean both inside and out. Inside's done. Outside's done. So now we have access to all that space. But we still need an attachment point up in here for our shot cord and our parachute. So that's where this white disc is going to come into play. It's just a piece of white plastic, 2 little very sharp screws, and we're going to tie the shot cord to this, and this white round disc is going to go up inside here and act as an anchor point for our shot cord. And it also prevents the payloads from going too far up in there. One of the problems we had in testing this is that the rocket would be arcing over after apogee being the highest point in the rocket's flight, and the ejection going off and the payload staying in here. So we've limited the amount of space. We just barely have enough space to get all this stuff in there. So what we need to do is drill a couple of holes so that we use these screws through the nose cone to put this in. So we're going to take our drill. We have a 9/64 drill bit, I believe. And if that was wrong, I'll fix it on the video. If you've not drilled before, you want to be careful. This will go right through skin faster than that. So we're going to set that aside. We're going to take the wire off of this, just holding it together. We're going to take one end of this, and if we look at this, it's wedge shaped or like a plug shape. The narrow end is going to go up to the top of the nose cone, and the wide end is going to be down towards the bottom. So I want to take the shot cord and I want to put it in the widest end Just using that little piece of wire to push it through. So all we're going to do on this is we're going to tie a single overhand knot. And then we're going to tie about 4 other knots just right on top of it. And we want to make a big bulky knot. Nothing fancy. We just don't want it to pull through that hole. So that's 4, I believe. And it's just a big, ugly knot. But if I hold the white disc and I pull on this really hard, it won't come out. So now what I'm going to do is put this in the nose cone. I can use my ruler to make sure it's in the right way. It's all snug. What we're going to do is we're going to take a pencil and we're going to mark where that part is inside here. We're going to hold it up to the light. We're going to mark each edge of the disc that we see in there. I'm going to take this out. We can mark the center of those 2 marks. And we're going right on the mold line on each one of those. Pull that back out. I'm going to take my drill and I'm going to drill a hole nice and slow on both of those mold lines. Take this, put it back in. Nice and snug. I'm going to take one of my screws. Put the second screw in. Okay, the next part we're going to do is we're going to go back into the bag. We're going to take out the bright fluorescent orange thing. We're going to save the paper clip. And what this is a piece of ripstop nylon. It's very thin, and if you look at it, there's kind of a square pattern in there. And those little square patterns keep it from ripping. This stuff is very hard to rip. And so what we're going to do is use this, it's called a streamer. It's like a parachute. So the payload that you guys are putting in here needs to come out of the rocket, and it's going to be on the parachute that came with the kit. So now we need something to put in the rocket to slow it down. And so we're using this streamer. It's about 5 inches wide and about 60 inches long, and I'm not sure what that is in metric. So we're going to take one corner of this, either end, and we're just going to tie an overhand knot in it. And we're just using that as a stopper knot. Then we're going to take the shot cord and we're going to do the same thing in this, about, I have it written down here, about 16 centimeters from the nose cone plug. It's not critical. So all we have is a knot. We're going to take the knot we put in this, a lot of knots, and we're going to tighten this up. That's our streamer attachment. So we're going to talk a little bit about motors. I still have the motor mount out that you guys were making. Clean up a little spot right here. So this is a spent one, meaning it's been used. One of the motors that you're going to be using. You're going to either use an E94 or an E12 for? An E is how much thrust this particular family of motors has. The number after the letter is how much average thrust it has. And the final number is the 4. And what that 4 means is from the time that this motor lights in 4 seconds out of the top of this motor, an ejection charge is going to happen, which is a lot of very hot gases, is going to make the rocket separate, meaning the nose cone is going to come off. So, hot gases and plastic parachutes and electronics and ripstop nylon don't get along very good. So in the normal kit, you may see a thing where it talks about using wadding and stuff. And what wadding is not paper towel, but it's very much like that. But it's treated with like boric acid, and you're supposed to put these in there, and it protects the parachute or recovery system from the hot gases. Well, that's kind of like littering if you don't get all the stuff back. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using kind of a baffle. And this may look like a scrubbing pad, but because it is. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put this down in the bottom of the rocket where the motor tube is coming through the centering rings. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the heat out of the ejection charge so that it doesn't melt anything inside the rocket. So if your scrubbing pad or baffle has a lot of little fray things coming off, you can just cut them with better scissors than I put out for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the other end of our shot cord, and we're going to take, I don't know, maybe a pinky diameter of this material, and we're going to open up a hole in this. We're going to come back, put our shot cord through this, and we're going to tie a knot in it. This is adjustable. Then we can take, and because this is a little bit smaller than this body tube, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to stretch it so that it's a nice fit on there, in there. See how it got bigger? So now it's a nice snug fit in there that the hot ejection charges from the motor won't destroy anything inside the rocket. So now what I need to do is attach this inside the rocket. If you go back to the shot cord mount stuff in the instructions, it's going to show you how to use this little thing and glue with the rubber band. But we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to take the end of this, and we're going to take our paper clip, and we're going to fray this because we're going to glue it in, and the glue will get better embossed or better embedded. And all I'm doing is using the straightened out the paper clip a little bit, and I'm just opening this up. And I'll take a picture of these key points. Hopefully you can see that. So then I would cut out this just like it says in the plans. I'd put some glue on there. I would fold this all up. And the key point on this is that you want this way down below here because you don't want it interfering with the nose cone going back on the rocket. So at that point there, I'm going to stop, and then we'll talk about how to load all this stuff up once you get ready to fly. Okay, at this point you have the rocket done, that the fins are all in, the shot cord's all attached, the rail guide or launch lug is all on, and what we need to do is once you make your payload is attach this parachute to the payload. So we're going to set this aside, and we're going to take and we're going to cut the rubber shot cord in half. Put the ends together, find the middle, I have better scissors. And the first thing we're going to do is feed it through this little 3D printed sled. So what I'm doing is I'm going around this center support here. And I'm out the side just to make it easier to come back through the other way. Just like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is just tie a knot in the end of this. And it's just a stopper knot. A lot of knots. We could get technical, but we don't have to. This stuff is so light. Again, just a knot in there. And then I'm going to tie some knots in this. Probably 2. And it's going to be kind of a little slip knot. And so then I'm going to pull this down or dress the knot. And that's how we're going to attach it. Using this shot cord just gives it some cushion once the parachute inflates. I'm not going to open this parachute. I have one right here. And the first thing you want to do is take it out of that bag, find the center point up here, get all your lines even. I'm going to take this center point here and I'm going to tie a knot in it. It's an overhand knot. Then I'm going to come back to this, a stopper knot, a lot of knots here. When I do real rockets and stuff, it's totally different than this, but this all works fine. So then I'm going to put the rubber shot cord through, and I'll take some pictures and tie a couple overhand knots in this. So now we have the parachute attached to the payload. This is all that comes outside the rocket, and then the rocket comes down on the streamer. So when we get ready to load this is a spent motor, and we're going to pretend it's real. So we're going to go back here, and we're going to pull the little metal thing off to the side, and then we're going to insert the motor in here. And the metal thing keeps the motor from shooting out the back of the rocket. That would be the first thing we do. So we're going to adjust this distance here a little bit. So I'm going to loosen up my knot. I'm going to come over here about that far away. Snug this down, making sure that this is still pulled out nice and wide. I'm going to take the shot cord over here, push this down. So now I have the baffle in place. I'm going to take my streamer and I'm going to fold it in half. Again, fold it. Again. 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 Then once I get to this point here, I'm just going to fold it in thirds. Okay? Keep that from coming undone. We're going to take the parachute. Going to fold it in thirds here. Thirds. Then I'm going to take the lines and roll these around. Okay? Go back to the streamer. I'm going to put the streamer in first. I'm going to put the payload on top of the streamer. I'm going to put this up in here. let's put the shock cords in first. Shock cords. Now put the parachute in. That's ready to go. We have the stainless steel baffle material down in there. We have this streamer folded up, thirded. On top of that, the payload electronic device on top of that, the parachute up on top of that, so that when we get to the top of the flight, the apogee, and the nose cone comes off, that all this will come stringing out together. And if you guys have any questions that the teachers can't answer, your instructors, they can email me. They know how to get a hold of me.